Good morning, members. Good morning, members. I'd like to welcome members of the public to this meeting of the Council, particularly those watching on the live stream on the Council's YouTube channel. Just to inform all members, there are some gremlins in the system which may affect us either in the voting or in the screen today, so please be patient with us if that occurs. The Council supports the principle of transparency and encourages filming, recording, taking of photographs at this meeting that are open to the public. Members are advised that this meeting may therefore be filmed, recorded or photographed. Please can I ask that all members turn their mobile phones to silent or vibrate whilst the meeting's taking place. There's no fire alarm test scheduled for today, so if the alarm sounds, I'll adjourn the meeting and we'll make our way downstairs via the fire escape in the corridor behind you. Muster point is at the far end of the building. Apologies for absence. I have received apologies today from Councillors Devine, Michael Fisher, Councillor George and Councillor Hoy. Item 1 on our agenda is the minutes.
Could I also add Councillor James Stewart to that list?
Thank you. Councillor Stewart also apologies. Thank you. Item 1 on our agenda is minutes from 19th of May and the motions log from that. So this is the approval of the minutes of the meeting held on the 19th of May. The Council is asked to agree these as a correct record. If any member does not agree, could you just raise your hand now, please? An updated motions log is also included in the published papers for this meeting for your information in order to report on progress. Whilst I'll not be reopening the debate on any motion in the motions log, I will take questions and comments. If you want to pursue actions further, you'll need to contact the allocated officer outside the meeting. Are there any questions on the motions log? If not, I will sign the meeting minutes from the 19th of May. Thank you. Item 2 in today's meeting is Chair's announcements, and I have a number of announcements to make today. I'm delighted to report that the Council has been re-accredited with the Ministry of Defence's Employer Recognition Scheme Gold Award. This is the highest honour that's available to organisations that demonstrate outstanding long-term support for the armed forces community. The Gold Award recognises the Council's sustained commitment to the armed forces and its strong track record of supporting people from the armed forces background, and of course we have some members here, and this includes reservists, veterans, cadet adult volunteers, service families and members of the wider cadet movement. The Council will wish to note that the Cambridgeshire Libraries has had its Carer Friendly Tick Award Communities renewed in recognition of the continued commitment to identifying, supporting and raising awareness of unpaid carers. The panel of carers who assessed the submission from Cambridgeshire Libraries on behalf of the Caring Together charity were impressed by the range and the work have been done across the libraries, the consistency of support and the impact that this has had on both carers and those that they care for. As Chair of the Council, I attended the following events: Memorial Day ceremony and Visitor Centre rededication ceremony at the Cambridge American Cemetery in Madingley, flag raising for Pride and Refugees at New Shire Hall, preparations for the celebratory event for the Council's Award of Sanctuary, 43rd Tri-Wing Joan Mann Special Sports Day at RAF Mildenhall, the official reopening of Camborne Library, High Sheriff of Cambridgeshire's Garden Party, the Aversley Grange Show Home launch, Cambridgeshire County Council's Award of Council of Sanctuary, Employee Recognition Scheme Gold Award, re-accreditation presentation, the Armed Forces Day in St Neots, a Cambridge Acre online meeting, and the 48th Fighter Wing Change of Command at RAF Lakenheath. My Vice Chair attended the following events: 2 Cambridgeshire Acre online meetings, the Armed Forces flag raising at New Shire Hall, conferment of honorary degrees at Queen's College Chapel in Cambridge, and the Independence Day festivities at RAF Alconbury. I also attended 9 citizenship ceremonies and the Vice Chair attended 3. And that concludes the announcements from the Chair today. Members, item 3 is the report of the County Returning Officer. This is to note the report of the County Returning Officer, which sets out the result of the recent Roman Bank and Peckover by-election, which is included in your agenda at page 33. I'd like to warmly welcome Councillor Chris Tyrrell to his first councillor meeting. Very, very welcome, Councillor Tyrrell. Members, item 4 is declarations of interests. Under this item, members are asked to declare interest under the Code of Conduct in any item on the agenda for today's meeting. They're not registered on the Register of Interest. May I have any additional declarations of interest now, please? No, thank you. Members, item 5 is public question time, which allows members of the public to ask questions at the council meeting, provided that they've given advance notice. Council has received notice of 3 questions. The content which has been circulated electronically to all members and published on the council's website. First questioner cannot be present today to pose her question, so as set out in the Constitution, she will receive in writing from the chair of the Children and Young People's Committee. Our next questioner is a student, and I understand that Miss Irina Korzova has joined us online, or hopes to join us online.
Hello, yes. Hi.
Okay, welcome. I can't see you, but I can hear you. Please go ahead. You're very welcome, and submit your question, please. You have 2 minutes.
So I am a part of the Ukrainian community in Cambridge, and on Sundays we have a teenage kind of group meetings. And we were wondering if a councillor would be able to come and talk to us about their job and just kind of introduce themselves and what do they do in the council, so we can learn more about it.
All right, thank you very much. I'd like to ask Councillor Nessinger to respond to your question, please.
Morning, Irina. Thank you so much for your question. It's really great that you're able to speak to us this morning, and it's my pleasure to reply to it. I'm very aware of the groups in Cambridge who support the Ukrainian community in Cambridge and in that part of the county. I know how important they were to the family of Ukrainians who I hosted in my house for 9 months a little while ago. And in particular, I know how important the teenager group was to the daughter of that family, for whom meeting up with other Ukrainian teenagers at the weekend made an enormous difference to her when she arrived in this country. I would be really delighted to come and talk to you. I know there are a number of other councillors who would also be very, very keen and interested to come and talk to your group. So I'm sure we will try and arrange that after the meeting. Thank you.
Yes, okay, thank you.
And thank you, Councillor Nessinger. Irina, you have option for a supplementary. Do you wish to ask a supplementary?
No, it's okay, thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Many thanks for joining us, and some of our members look forward to seeing you. Thank you. So we had a second questioner today, Mr. Guy Lachlan. He's not able to join us this morning, so therefore he will receive a written response to his question. Members, item 6 is petitions. Sorry.
Apologies. There was a question from Kerry Portman about care leavers.
Likewise, you will receive a written response.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I just wanted to acknowledge that.
No, that's
very
fine.
important question.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
So, members, item 6 is petitions. Allow members of the public to present petitions in accordance with the agreed protocol. No petitions were received, and therefore I'd like to move to the next item. Before I proceed with the rest of the agenda, can I remind you as normal about the audio and voting system? In order to register to speak, can you please raise your hand? I'll add you to my list of speakers. When I invite you to speak, please press your mic button. If you wish to raise a point of order or point of personal explanation, you need to raise your hand, do not press a button. And I intend to be strict, as usual, about the raising of the point of order and the points of personal explanation. Raising the point of order means the member believes there's been a breach in the council's rules of procedure or law, and so I'll require the member to indicate the rule or law which he or she considers has been broken. If this belief is challenged, I as chair will be the final arbiter. Point of personal explanation may relate to some material part of an earlier speech by the member raising the point, which may appear to have been misunderstood in the present debate. Again, I will be the final arbiter. I would also like to remind members that if a member rises on any of these points, any other member currently on their feet should immediately sit down until the point's been determined. All speeches from members must be addressed through the chair. Can I remind members the Local Government Association's Debate Not Hate campaign states that debating and disagreeing one another is a healthy part of democracy, but abuse and intimidation not acceptable. Thank you. Members, item 7 is recommendation to the full council from the Strategy, Resources and Performance Committee, and this relates to the Treasury Management outturn for 2025-26. Can I ask the chair of the Strategy, Resources and Performance Committee, Councillor Nessinger, to move that recommendation as set out on page 2 of the agenda to be approved, and ask the Vice Chair, Councillor Dupre, to second. Councillor Nessinger.
Happy to move.
And Councillor Nessinger?
Happy to second.
Thank you. So, members, are there any questions on the on this item on page 2 from the Strategy Resources Treasury Management report? Seems therefore to be general consensus in support of the motion. However, if anybody does disagree, please raise your hand now. I see no objections, and therefore we take that motion as carried. Thank you. Item 8 is recommendations to the full council from the Constitution and Ethics Committee, and this is on page 34 of your agenda. Can I ask the Vice Chair of the Council, as Chair of the Constitution and Ethics Committee, to move that the recommendations as set out in the report be adopted, and Councillor Dupre to second the recommendation?
Thank you, Chair. I so move.
Thank you. And Councillor Dupre?
Happy to second.
Members, do you have any questions on the recommendations from the Constitution and Ethics Committee? If there are no questions, then there seems to be, members, a general consensus in support of the motion to accept this. If anybody disagrees, please raise your hand now. Councillor Tong.
I'd like to abstain, please.
As Councillor Tong wishes to abstain, I think we need to move to a vote. Democratic Services. I think we will go to the non-technical approach. For all those in favour of accepting the recommendation of Constitution and Ethics, please raise your hand. Thank you. For those who are against, please raise your hand. And I can't wait for those who wish to abstain. Thank you very much, Councillor Tong. Oh, there are 2. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Councillor Watt. We almost missed you there. Democratic Services, could you announce the result of the vote, please?
Chair, the result of the vote is the majority of members in favour, no members against, and 2 members abstained. The motion is therefore carried.
Thank you very much. Members, our next item is item 9, which is the Health Scrutiny Annual Report for 2025-26. This is in your agenda on pages 76 to 105. Could I ask the previous chair of Health Scrutiny Committee, Councillor Howitt, who was chair for the time period of the report, to move receipt of the report? Councillor Howitt.
Thank you very much, Chair. This is the first year in which Health Scrutiny has been a standalone committee of the Council. And although many of us are very, very interested in what's happening on local government reform at the moment and looking inwards at the council, it's really important for us to ensure that our priority for external scrutiny is undertaken properly and given due importance. And that's why it's quite right that we're dealing with this issue today. It is also important that all members of the council, not just members of the committee, are familiar with what we're doing and able to contribute to it, partly because as a standalone council, we need to ensure that the connections with the council's own work, particularly in relation to adult social care and public health, are properly maximised, and also that members who are not on the committee, who have issues within their divisions or that come to light from their constituents, are able to access what is happening in health scrutiny and influence the agenda, as Councillor Sanderson has done about concerns over the digitalisation of patient records at NWAFT in the last year. As I say in the foreword, there are big issues going on in the health service that we need to really be vigilant about monitoring. So we've had separate sessions during this year in relation to the 10-year plan on the NHS and how that's being implemented locally, and on the reconfiguration of the Integrated Care Board. And I do say to members that the new Central East ICB, which is going to be responsible for all, or is responsible for all commissioning of health services within our area, is the second largest in the country. And we're going to have to work very hard to make sure that health services remain as responsive to our electorate and to local citizens within Cambridgeshire. There is also a concern about whether integrated neighbourhoods, which we've championed as a council and should be championing, whether they will be given the same priority. The words of the ICB are pretty good on that, but at the moment their plans to actually fund it seem very, very short of what is needed, with all of the funding being kept by the major acute trusts. So we need to scrutinise that carefully, as we have done. We've also expressed concern about the abolition of Health Watch nationally, but having a local Health Watch, they've been really positive contributors to our Health Scrutiny Committee, and they are the place that patients can go when they're let down by the health service that is independent and who will listen to them and respond. And I remain worried about that. We don't know quite what will come out of Parliament on that in the end, but we should watch that vigilantly as well. You will see in the report that there's been some really serious issues within the NHS locally. We don't simply bash the NHS when things go wrong, but it is very, very important that where things go wrong, we give them proper scrutiny. So in relation to the excess suicides that have taken place under the aegis of CPFT, whether it's the safety issues which have affected maternity services within our local hospitals as well as nationally, or whether it's the very concerning case of safety issues in relation to a particular orthopaedic surgeon at Cambridge University Hospitals. Patient lives have been put at risk, and it is quite proper that we give that effective scrutiny. But I stress we do so in a way which is contributing constructively to the improvement plans to learn the lessons from those failures, not simply bashing the NHS. You will see we've also made some pretty serious challenges to the health service in relation to people with learning disabilities who continue to have much lower life expectancy than the rest of the population, and people with autism who are not getting the diagnosis that they need quick enough by a very, very long way. I do commend to the council and to the new chair the fact that we have operated this committee in a cross-party way, and that we have very detailed and well-attended preparatory meetings which enable us to prepare and structure the questions carefully and effectively, with, of course, thanks to our Democratic Services Officer, Rashenda Greenhill, who has served us brilliantly. And I also want to place on record my thanks to all of the district council representatives who play an equal role in the committee and again have contributed well. and to Anna Bradnam, Sarah Kane, Lorna Dupre, Peter Fain, Stefan Fisher, Jennifer Malinowski, Ross Martin and Andy Osborne, who have been great colleagues during the course of the year while I've been chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, we are asked to note the report, but are there any questions or comments that members wish to make? Councillor Bowden.
Thank you very much indeed, Chairman. I wonder, I heard the comments from Councillor Howard about the difficulties we are going to face now with a larger ICB and the difficulties also with the abolition of Health Watch. Councillor Howard will know that in fact, we together have worked very hard over the years to try to ensure that there is greater integration between local government, between social services in particular, and the health service. And the silo mentality which has existed and still exists between the two sectors is unhelpful to patients and unhelpful to residents. But would he share my concern, not merely about Health Watch and the larger ICBs, but also about the current health bill that is going before Parliament, and in section 23 of this draft bill, the abolition of joint health and social care strategic needs assessments, the abolition of integrated care partnerships, and the abolition of integrated care strategies, and that we seem to be moving nationally away from cooperation between the health service and local government and more towards those silos which are so harmful to overall patient health and care.
Thank you. Councillor Howitt, would you like to address any of those points?
Yes, I would share those concerns. I agreed with almost everything that Councillor Bowden said there. When under the new chair, we scrutinised the representative for the Integrated Care Board at our last meeting. That was a specific question I put to them. And I think systems thinking that used to be the watchword of what we were trying to do, and not simply do things institutionally in our own boundaries, either as a local authority or within the health service, it does risk being lost. Again, in the scrutiny, they gave the right answers in terms of saying they were still committed to it, but there's less on paper that suggests that. I think that's right to say. But I think you're right also that through you, Chair, Councillor Bowden is right to say that there's a responsibility here for us as an authority, because it does take two to tango, and we have our own role in trying to ensure that that seeks to happen. And at the last meeting in our Adults and Health Committee, as Councillor Wilson is aware, I was concerned that we're setting up a new domiciliary care contract which doesn't have the same boundaries on as the integrated neighbourhoods, and it seems to me we've got to do our bit as well as a council, and I do put on record that I agree with Councillor Bowden's intervention.
Thank you. Councillor Navarro and Councillor Tong.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, there are huge challenges, but we have real influence through the Health and Wellbeing Board. This body has statutory obligations, and we can intervene on the Section 26 and Section 195 of the Healthcare Act and assist the ICB and the NHS on the decisions that they are taking, especially now that we are moving into neighborhood health. So there is real influence, and I will work with the new chair of the committee, of scrutiny committee, to make sure that we are on the same page and that we can bring these issues to the Health and Wellbeing Board and influence from there. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Tong.
Hello. Firstly, I would like to thank the committee for all their hard work in this area. I think it's really, really important that we are providing this scrutiny. Something I wanted to quickly reference was my written question on one of my 11 written questions to this meeting, which got a really good response from Councillor Dewey Beckett, and I wanted to thank them for their response. My question relates to NHS dentistry and the fact that between financial years 2023 to 2025, there was a 16.2 million NHS dental contract underspend, only 4 million of which was reinvested back into the NHS dental service. And I think it's really important that the council is making sure that this type of thing doesn't happen with the Central East ICB, and we are actually making sure that NHS dental services are being protected. And it's really good to know that action is being taken on this.
So, as you mentioned, a written question was submitted and answered, but Councillor Howitt, do you want to address any of those points?
Yeah, during my time, we've twice undertaken scrutiny of dentistry. I'm sure the committee under the new chair will continue to consider that. And it's quite clear within our scrutiny, there's no easy answers, and definitely more could and should have been done locally. But the National Dental Contract is clearly a major obstacle in order for dental needs to be met. It has come out. And I would just again agree with Councillor Navarro. I think the abolition of the Integrated Care Partnership makes the work of the Health and Wellbeing Board even more important, and I wish him success in what he says.
Thank you very much. Members, are there any other questions or observations? We are required to note this report, so with your permission, I will move on. Thank you. So item 10, members, is appointment to outside bodies. And I would like to propose to move as chair the appointment of Councillor Ross Hathorn to the Cambridge and Peterborough Fire Authority to replace Councillor Edna Murphy, and the appointment of Councillor Lucy Nessinger to the Greater Cambridge Development Corporation Board. I've also received an additional request to replace Councillor Chris Poulton with Councillor Jennifer Malinowski on the Greater Cambridge Partnership Assembly. Can I ask the Vice Chair to second, please?
I'm happy to second.
Members, are there any questions or challenges to our proposals? There seems to be general consensus in support of the motion. However, just checking, if anybody does disagree, please raise your hand now. I see no objections, and we will take that motion as carried. Thank you. Item 11, we move to motions submitted under Council Procedure 10. 6 motions have been submitted today, and the first one I'd like to ask Councillor Rees to move and speak to his motion as set out on pages 3 and 4 of the Council agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So, fellow councillors, this motion is road water runoff and fragile habitats in Cambridgeshire. So, as we're all aware from the current hosepipe ban, water is a crucial resource in Cambridgeshire. Cambridgeshire is also home to chalk streams, which are of world significance. 85% of world's chalk streams are in southern and eastern England, and the public want these precious streams to be protected. They supply the public with water. They also provide a remarkable habitat for wildlife. Road water runoff pollution is the lethal cocktail of chemicals, for example, 6-ppd quinone, which comes from roads into water streams and wildlife habitats. So in the UK, it contributes to 18% of water body failures. Currently, we're leaving this major source of water pollution unmeasured. This motion is to work with partners to conduct some measurements so that we can understand the scope of this problem in some key fragile habitats as identified through the local nature recovery strategy, which the Council is already working on. Let me just emphasize 3 things. 1, officers tell me that this will add to the Council's capability to deliver on existing priorities. So the Council is already working on delivering the local nature recovery strategy. The lack of any data about this type of pollution in vulnerable nature sites is a risk to our ability to deliver that strategy. 2, this is not taking funds from other council budgets. Officers have applied for funds from Natural England, also in discussion with interested partners who would be conducting the measurements. This is also not requiring additional officer time. They have told me they anticipate that any council officer time on this would be part of their existing work streams on the local nature recovery strategy. 3rd and finally, in times of drought, like now, the polluting chemicals become more concentrated and more harmful. So we do need to act now And really, this is a win-win opportunity to protect an asset which is in crisis and which all life depends on, water. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I believe, Councillor Hathorn, you're seconding. Would you like to speak now or reserve your right? Okay. Members, we move to the debate. Can I ask for speakers, any speakers regarding this motion? Councillor Mary Homan, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Rees, for bringing this motion forward. I think it's a really, really important motion. Obviously, I'm sure I don't need to go on about the threats to our waterways, the pollution that we see in this nation, and particularly here in Cambridgeshire with some very sensitive habitats. I'm really pleased to see as well something that's so constructive and feasible as well, and look forward to seeing data coming forth as we try and build in partnership working the bigger picture of our waterways, the pollution they face. And I think I was always struck going down the River Wye a couple of years ago on how dead some of our waterways in this country are from pollution, from runoff. And we, particularly with sensitive chalk streams here in Cambridgeshire, knowing what is causing harm, having the actual data as well, I think we all have ideas about what's causing harm, but when we can measure it, then we can take some serious action. So I will very much be voting for this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Watt.
Thank you, Chair. I certainly do share the concern for the safety of our chalk streams, but this motion points the wrong organisation at the wrong task. Water quality monitoring is the statutory remit of the Environment Agency. Creating a parallel system in the County Council duplicates effort, and it also dilutes accountability. It drags our officers into specialist work that they are neither resourced nor mandated to deliver. Our teams are already stretched on core duties the public rightly expect: safe, smooth roads, reliable transport, and essential services. If we want to reduce pollution from our highways, the most effective proven step is for better road maintenance, smoother surfaces, timely pothole repairs, and drainage upkeep. These all cut the risk of oil sump damage and reduces the risk of cars skidding off the road into the watercourses. This proposal adds a new bureaucracy without a clear problem definition, methodology, or a costed plan. To say potential partner funding is not a business case, and chasing grants still creates hidden officer time and long-term liabilities. The Environment Agency has the tools, labs, and legal framework. Let's press them to prioritise our sensitive sites and share results with us. I urge colleagues to reject this motion, instead focus on delivering high-quality highway maintenance and drainage, and on holding the Environment Agency to account for monitoring and enforcement. That is practical, affordable, and within our remit.
Thank you, Councillor Watt. Councillor Malinowski.
Thank you, Chair. Around this time last year, as a new councillor, I was invited by a concerned resident of mine to visit the River Snail, which is a chalk stream in my division that at the time was completely bone dry. We walked on the riverbed together, looking at the devastation that this dried up chalk stream that had, clearly experienced some pollution further upstream, and due to changing climate, had completely gone dry. We could see animal footprints in the riverbed. Some chalk streams do occasionally run dry, but this one never had in all of its history. And I'm pleased to say that 1 year later, it is now no longer dry. It is flowing very, very nicely. And the reason for that is because we did an enormous amount of work to get the Environment Agency to take it seriously. While I appreciate what Councillor Watts has just outlined about the statutory responsibility of the Environment Agency in this area, anyone who's ever worked with them will know they're not necessarily an easy organisation to work with. So any work we can do as a council to support them and to continue to fight for our chalk streams locally, I think will be really strongly appreciated by our residents. They certainly will be by my residents in Snailwell, where we fought quite hard to get our chalk stream flowing again. So I commend this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Murphy.
Thank you. I'm very grateful for this motion coming forward, and I support it. I was very struck at the listening to the evidence given to the Environmental Audit Committee last September, where they heard evidence about the effect on pollution from motorway runoff. It is far more dangerous than sewage. We all know the dangers of sewage, but highway runoff consists of microplastic tire wear particles, hydrocarbons, and toxic metals. Apparently, 45% of microplastics in water come from tire wear. So it's also not just the lack of data, it's also the lack of investment in tackling motorway runoff. The Environment Agency has and other agencies have invested a great deal of money, quite properly, in addressing sewage and the management of sewage, but it's pitiful sum in comparison with that is being invested in addressing motorway runoff. So yes, please, to this motion. Getting some data is a start.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bradnam.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. I absolutely support this motion, and having looked into it myself, what I realise is it's a huge subject, and it's very important that we get data on it because, you know, I'm a member for Waterbeach Division, which has the River Cam running through it. And in my other capacity, I also sit on the Waterbeach Level Internal Drainage Board, and we know that this water is what the farmers this time of year carefully manage into ditch lines and abstract in order to irrigate crops, and further down in the Ouse and further north into the Wash area, that happens all over. And so it's really important that the quality of water is good enough to be used for irrigation on our crops, which we need for food. So absolutely, I support this motion. I think it's very sensible. And also, as Councillor Murphy has said, the problem is really severe. So absolutely, I think we should work with our partners, work with the Environment Agency and any other research organisations looking for funding to explore this. So absolutely, I support this.
Thank you. Councillor Tierney.
Thank you, Chair. I think this motion is well intentioned, and I think I broadly support what it sets out to try and achieve. And more data is never harmful. But it's really not our job, is it? Really, our job, our first priority, in my opinion, is to fix the roads and to look after adults and children and the jobs that are actually the county council's jobs. And it strikes me that if we spent as much time and effort fixing the roads as we do virtue signalling, we'd have less runoff because there'd be less damage to tyres and the like, and that would have a lot of the same effect. So I don't know how I feel about this motion. I'm going to listen to the rest of the comments, but I've got to say it seems once again like we're being diverted away from the actual jobs which we should be doing and are not doing well. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Navarro, Councillor Martin, Councillor Green.
Thank you, Chair. I welcome this motion and I will support it. And I would like to extend it to some other places where the use of recycled tires are in place. For example, the increasing number of football pitches and sport pitches where these when tires are used as infill. Some of them are really near to water courses. At least I know of the case of two. I have asked the Director of Public Health to look into the possible harms into human health, especially children. There is no real evidence on that. However, this doesn't discount the damage that could be caused to our waterways and our chalk streams. So I think we could probably extend that to the deployment of these sports facilities because there are alternatives to it. So I will support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Martin.
Thank you very much, Chair. And just to echo the words of Councillor Watt and Councillor Tierney, Well, I know that this is a big issue across our area. I have it in Huntingdonshire. I know the River Kim has issues with pollution, as do the borrow pits in Brampton, which is something that lands in my email inbox quite a lot. This is an issue for the Environment Agency. As much as they are difficult to work with, difficult to work alongside, it is for them to deal with. And we've got to remember that this motion is just seeking to try and get grant funding to do a scoping of the issue, not to actually potentially fix the issues. It doesn't even talk about what we're going to do with that data. It just says we're going to try and get some funding to be able to pull this information together. So while it is well intentioned, I don't think this is a matter for the County Council to be dealing with. So therefore I will be voting against.
Thank you. Councillor Green.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm fortunate to have a chalk stream running through my division, which is unusual as it's an urban division as well. I'd just like to pass on a little story. I was by the stream the other day speaking to citizen scientists, and they pointed out that there was a black layer on the chalk stream, which I thought was rich sediment, and they pointed out that was actually a layer of particulates from tires. Now I haven't had the chance to do any research on this, so it may not be true, but I think that is clear that we need some much better data gathering on the health of our chalk streams and what road runoff is doing to them. I think the Environment Agency is overstretched. Even if they are the proper authority for this, we could be waiting years before they can devote the proper time and resources. So yes, I support this motion, and I hope we can clear our chalk streams up as soon as possible.
Thank you. Councillor Black.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to quickly address the remarks of Councillors Tierney and Watt in this debate. I'd like to ask them to consider the possibility that this council can actually walk and chew gum at the same time. I very much support us taking action on chalk streams and on the environment. I think we should do that. It is, of course, also incredibly important that we get a grip on adults and health and on the highways. And we have a motion coming up very shortly, and that does address the matter of the highways and the flagrant failure of the privatisation of work on those highways and of particular main contractors. And the interesting thing is, I suspect that these councillors might be the very ones who will not be supporting are pinpointing the thing that has gone wrong with our highways, which will continue to go wrong, and that is the underperformance of the whole thing being privatised. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Do I have any other speakers on this motion? If not, Councillor Hathorn, you reserve your right to speak.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Thank you to Councillor Rees for bringing forward this motion. It is pragmatic and it is sensible. It addresses a really important situation. It is pragmatic. It recognises that this council is very stretched and it doesn't have the internal capacity to do this important piece of research. It is not necessarily looking for grant funding. It is looking to work with partners. That is a different thing. We live in a county which has some of the world's top research institutions. So actually we're very well situated for organisations to come and research what is going on in terms of runoff into our waterways. It is not just for the Environment Agency. This is not a piece of work just for the Environment Agency to take care of. We are the Highways Authority. We're also the Flood Authority. The water runoff our roads, is something that we do have a responsibility for because it goes into our waterways. And it is really important to understand what is going on to work out what needs to happen. Now, we may not be able to fund what needs to happen, but by getting data, that puts us in a position to begin to ask and begin to campaign for those things to happen to safeguard our waterways. In June 2023, there was a serious issue on the River Can where hundreds of fish were found dead after heavy rainfall. The Environment Agency determined it was not due to sewage runoff. The more data you have, the better positioned you are to work out what is going on when you have a serious situation like this. We all value our waterways. We have a responsibility. So I will be supporting this motion.
Thank you very much. Councillor Rees, it's now your opportunity to sum up, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you all councillors for sharing your views. It's really warming and exciting to hear so much positive feedback. So big thank you to everyone who spoke in support. Really appreciate it. Also, just want to underline, any risk of duplicating efforts. There is no organised current measuring of this road water runoff pollution, so there's no risk of duplicating efforts, and it is our local nature recovery strategy that was unanimously passed as a strategic priority for the council. This is going to help us achieve that. So please do support this motion. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It's clear that there isn't a consensus with regard to the motion, so I would like to now ask Democratic Services, please, to start a vote, and we will see how the system copes.
Members in favour of the motion, please press the button underneath the word yes. Members against the motion, please press the button underneath the word no. Members wishing to abstain, please press the button underneath the word abstain. Chair, I'm now closing the vote. Chair, the result of the vote is 41 votes in favour, 13 votes against, 1 abstention. The motion is therefore carried.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, members. So that concludes discussion of our first motion today. We now move to the second motion, which is submitted by Councillor Hoy, who is unable to attend today's meeting. Councillor Bowden, I believe, will be moving Councillor Hoy's motion. But I also understand that, Councillor Bowden, you're proposing alterations to the motion which have been circulated to members and published on the website. Therefore, can I ask the meeting for its consent for the altered motion? Thank you. Can I now ask Councillor Bowden to move the motion and speak to the altered motion as circulated to members on 13th of July and published on the Council's website? Councillor Bowden.
Thank you very much indeed, Chair, and I'm hoping this is going to be quite an uncontroversial altered motion and that we'll be able to get through it quite quickly. I'd first of all like to thank Councillor Alex Beckett for the cooperation he's shown on this subject so that we can move this whole issue forward. And what this altered motion seeks to achieve is to ask Highways and Transport Committee to consider proposals for a pedestrian crossing at the Westwood School in March. Now, the Westwood School is the largest primary school that we've got in the whole of Cambridgeshire, with something like 750 pupils, and it's a split site across a road called Maple Grove in March. And that split site means that you've actually got siblings who are on different sides of the road. Maple Grove is a road I know very well, being very close to the offices of Fenland District Council, and it's a long, straight road which encourages speeding, except, of course, when we're talking about the drop-off and pick-up times when it is horrendously congested. And we've all, in our individual divisions, got schools like that which are horrendously congested by sometimes inconsiderate parking by parents. But the special reason that this is being brought forward here is the sheer number of pupils who are involved and the fact that it's a split site across 2 different roads. And that sheer number of children involved increases the risk of serious accidents there. Now, it's not for full council to make a decision on this, and that's why the request is being made for it to be considered by Highways and Transport Committee. And I'm grateful to Alex Beckett for his support, and he'll be seconding this motion, and I urge all members to support it. Thank you very much indeed, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Beckett, I believe you are seconding, as already mentioned. Do you wish to speak now or reserve your right?
I'll reserve my right. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Members, can I have speakers who wish to talk to the motion? Councillor Galbraith, Councillor Goodliffe. Galbraith, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. This motion is a piece of political grandstanding, of that there is no doubt. I do question what this motion actually adds to the work which is already well underway by officers and the administration. The motion resolves to bring forward proposals, review funding sources, report back through the capital programme. However, can the proposer identify one practical solution in this motion that officers at the County Council were not already undertaking before it was tabled? Further, bringing forward a motion affecting other members of the division, surely the first step would have been to speak to those local members already working with officers and the administration. I would say to the councillor proposing this motion, can you confirm what discussions you had with the local county councillors before bringing this motion? By the way, to save time, The answer is none. Major highway improvements are rarely delivered by a single motion or councillor. They are delivered by schools, parents, parent committees, local members, and all officers all working together. Strangely, all of this was happening, but then the proposer hadn't, as far as what can be seen, checked due to a lack of connection. The amended motion now mirrors the work officers were already undertaking in that respect. I welcome the amendment because it's considerably closer to the process that was in train. It brings into question the motion's purpose apart from leaflet enhancement, but despite fearing that this motion will make no practical difference at all, I will support the motion for one reason and one reason only. In the second paragraph from the end, it states that a review should be held to establish possible highways funding sources with the CPCA rather than just within the County Council. However, if the Tory-led FDC had not let the S106 funding from the March West development evaporate, then this motion in its entirety would never have been necessary. Maybe then a smokescreen instead of grandstanding. I'll let you make your choice. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Goodliffe, then Councillor Tierney.
Thank you, Chair. As some other members here are also of a similar age, I'm sure we all remember being taught to cross roads by hedgehogs back in our childhood, the good old Green Cross Code, and crossing between parked cars is a particular issue. I fully support having better infrastructure here. But I am confused as to why the amendment has removed the action call from local residents, parents and campaigners. In fact, it's not the only motion where that's been removed, the view of local residents. I fully support that children should be able to travel to school safely, that parents should be able to teach their children to cross the road safely, but that we should support any effort in order for this to happen.
Thank you very much. Councillor Tierney.
Thank you, Chair. I was going to say how nice it is to finally have a motion where we can all just agree and in a cross-party way deliver something that's safe for people and helps kids. Unfortunately, Councillor Galbraith smashed that down, but nevertheless, he did at least support it. I think it's a great motion and I hope everyone else will also support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, do I have any other speakers on this motion? Therefore, Councillor Beckett, you reserve your right to speak.
Thank you very much. And I sympathise slightly with Councillor Galbraith because there has been a lot of work going on around this. I do want to thank Sam, though, for working with us to bring this to attention. This is a really interesting school, the Westwood School in March. The road is incredibly busy and I understand the issues that are there crossing it. I'm sure many of you will be aware that I myself have a daughter who is currently at that age at primary school. And the differences that have been able to be made to her primary school to allow kids to get to school safely have been incredible. Actually, yesterday I was presenting an active travel conference and it gave me the chance to, before that, go and count the number of people arriving at my daughter's school, and I counted 50 cargo bikes and over 150 kids' bikes actually arriving by school. And I think all of us hopefully aspire to make the school run much safer, much easier, much more reliable. And I hope that we can all believe in that. I think as an administration, we've said that travel to school and making kids' journeys to school are one of our top priorities. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to support this motion today, because I didn't feel like I could, in good faith, vote against something that is looking to improve school safety and improve kids' journeys to school. So I do want to thank all the members that have been raising this from all different parties. I want to thank Sam for working with us to get an alteration in place on this, because to me, I think it's very important that all of us want to bring our own motions to council. What's important, though, is that they do go through the due process. And that, to me, was key in getting the alteration here, that we shouldn't use full council to skip the process, but that we can use full council to raise awareness on issues. So it is really good to see that this school will be brought forward through the usual process to be prioritised accordingly. And I think and I hope that it will be scored very well on that, but that it carries on with the process. But I want to thank everyone for bringing this. I hope that we can all support it because it does look like a really worthy and good intervention. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bowden, would you like to sum up?
Thank you, Chair. I think I need to apologise to you for misleading you. I had thought that there would be no controversy on this subject at all. And to be accused of political grandstanding, I'd have thought everyone would just row behind it. And from what I've heard, however reluctantly in the case of Councillor Galbraith, it sounds as though everyone may be supporting this, and it may not even need to go to a formal vote. And I hope that it doesn't need to go to a formal vote, because really, it's an issue which is clearly one which needs to be considered carefully. It's not a case of jumping the queue. It's a case of looking at where there is a very significant risk in terms of a really large number of pupils every day. As I said before, it is a road I do know well. In fact, it's a road I try to avoid at pickup and drop-off times just because it is so chaotic there. And we are often accused of waiting until there's a fatality or a serious accident before taking any action. In this case, I hope we could get ahead of the game and make sure that something is put in place to avoid that fatality or serious accident. Thank you very much indeed, Chair.
Thank you. So I want to venture that there seems to be general consensus in support of the motion. If anybody disagrees with my reading of the room, please raise your hand now. I see no objections, and therefore we will take the motion as carried. Thank you, Councillor Bowden, Councillor Beckett, for all your hard work. So that concludes discussion of the second motion, and we now move to the third motion submitted by Councillor Elliott Tong. I understand, Councillor Tong, you're proposing alterations to the motion which have been circulated to members and published on the Council's website. Can I please ask the meeting for its consent for the altered wording? And accordingly, can I ask Councillor Tong to move and speak to his altered motion circulated to members on 13th of July and published on the Council's website? Councillor Tong.
Well, I will begin by noting these actually aren't my amendments. They were very constructively put forward by Councillor Whelan. I really, really appreciate, because I think they strengthen the intent of the motion. Now, I will note I don't have a timer up on the screen, so you may need to tell me if I overrun. I have quite a lot to say on this issue. Oh, all the way on the other side of the room I do. Quite hard to see, but I'll do my best. Well, at the end of May, Department for Work and Pensions published a report called Young People and Work, which is an interim report, often called the Milburn Report, about the state of youth unemployment in the UK. And this is a genuine crisis that the country is facing at the moment. The report notes that 1 in 8 young people across the UK are not in education, employment or training. NEET, I prefer to just say youth unemployment. It's a really big problem, and I feel that largely across the country, it's not being given the weight it deserves. I've often heard young people themselves get blamed, you know, young people are being lazy, young people aren't pulling themselves up by their bootstraps. But the report notes that, well, this is a quote, of the NEET population, nearly 30% are now getting good GCSEs or equivalent, over 21% have a level 3 qualification, and 15% have a degree, end quote. These are young people that have really done what society has told them to. When I was young, I was told that if I worked really hard in school, dedicated my mind to what I wanted to do and got good grades, I would get a fulfilling, well-paid job that would allow me to contribute to society. And I think that's something that a lot of people want to do. And also be rewarded for that, live a happy life, get the basics we need, things like housing. And young people have exited education to be completely betrayed, because that isn't the case. When you leave education now, you face this impenetrable job market. People desperately want to work. They really want to do something rewarding. They really want to contribute. But instead of actually just getting down to it, they enter this degrading job hunt, having to endlessly put in hundreds, potentially, of job applications to actually be able to contribute and do what they want. And this is while they could be contributing. They're wasting tens of hours of their time. And it's incredibly emotionally exhausting. I've heard of so many people around me just absolutely crack due to how terrible this experience of the job market is. Often you don't hear back. Often when you do hear back, it's just an automated response with barely any care put into it. I'll be honest, a lot of these job applications, and by that I mean advertisements, aren't even real. They're just data harvesting exercises. The minute a young person actually tries to use online websites to look into a job, they endlessly, well, unfortunately, I do have to summarize. I wanted to go on, unfortunately, but I will say I think this motion is about responding to the Milburn Report's findings, and I think the County Council does great work in this area, but it's about trying to refine that and make sure we're responding to the outcome of this report.
I think you had 1 second left, but anyway, well done. Councillor Whelan, I believe you proposed alterations and wish to second.
I'll second and reserve my right on that.
Thank you. Members, do you have any other speakers on this motion, please? Councillor Fane, Councillor Wyatt.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Councillor Tong for bringing this forward. As was clear from the report, this is a chronic problem which is getting worse, not getting better. 10 years ago, UK, our problem of the ugly term NEETs, not in employment, young people not in employment, education or training, was roughly the EU average. Now only Romania within the EU has a worse problem. And part 2 of this, the final report, will allocate the responsibilities. Inevitably, much of that responsibility will be for county councils and unitaries to deal with, and not just in relation to our specific responsibilities for education and skills. I wanted to focus on a particular important sector which is currently in great difficulties, which can make a big contribution on this issue. And that is that of voluntary youth services. Many of us have in our divisions charitable groups and youth services, whether that's Scouts, Guides, youth clubs, Air Force and Army cadets. Chairman, you and I have in our division the SSYI, who do an invaluable job, including targeted help for young people who are in difficulties. And many of those organisations are facing a crisis at the moment, which in some cases has forced them to suspend recruitment, whether it is because of a lack of premises or the cost of obtaining premises, for instance, having to pay commercial rates to academies for premises. And I think we have all seen how important the work that they do can be, particularly for young people who have not necessarily thrived in conventional education, giving them confidence, skills, and new opportunities, as well as contacts. So we've seen those great benefits, and it is very important that we as a county council take every opportunity to support these groups in the work that they do.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Councillor Wyatt, Councillor Hathorn.
Hello. So I was really pleased to see the motion on the agenda this week, and I'm happy to support it. So despite good qualifications and no shortage of motivation, I was unemployed for almost a whole year after I graduated. I found it impossible to get a job for what felt like really arbitrary reasons. I spent that year on welfare, and I have a really stark memory of the systems in place that were ostensibly to help me get a job being an active hindrance. My job seekers allowance was sanctioned if I didn't apply for 5 jobs a day. Never mind the fact that there weren't 5 jobs a day available that suited my skills at the time. I was sent on a course on CV writing as punishment for not applying for a position as an aircon repair technician with my biostatistics degree and my asthma. Having worked in restaurants and shops in my summers at uni, I didn't want to take on the same after graduating. I knew that my neurodiversity would mean that I would be so exhausted from the work that I wouldn't have the mental bandwidth to apply for something more appropriate. I knew that I knew that I had neither the dexterity for waitressing nor the patience for retail. So I just couldn't do it. Some of my friends did, and they stayed in those jobs for years, basically nullifying the value of our time at university. In the end, though, I did manage to get a good job that made good use of my skills, and then I had a successful career. I have a successful career. I would really hope that our young people in Cambridgeshire would be afforded a less punitive experience than I was. So I would really hope that you would all support this. In an age where entry-level positions are scarce because a ChatGPT subscription is cheaper than a young person, it's really crucial that we as a council understand the difficulties faced by people leaving education, treat them like human beings rather than statistics, and actually support them into meaningful careers. So thank you, Councillor Tong.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Hathorn, Councillor Deter, Councillor Watt, Councillor Rees, Councillor Bradnam.
Thank you. Yes, this is a really important issue, and I wanted to talk about a conversation I had at the weekend. So I have 2 Year 10 children. They are doing their GCSEs next year, and they're just receiving invitations to open evenings at sixth forms and so forth. A Ukrainian family said to me, "Ros, what are the options for my child?" And I realized quite quickly my knowledge ran out. What are the options? What are the options? There are A-levels. There are lots of other options. There's lots of different schools. I couldn't name them all. The situation in Cambridgeshire is quite complicated. How is it funding? How is transport to school funded? How does the money work? If you fail your GCSE English or maths, what happens? How do post-16 choices affect post-18 choices in terms of education? If you fail exams in the further education 16 to 18 slot, what are your options then? How do you get to schools? How do you apply for schools? What are the deadlines? How does it work? Is it an average of grades? Actually, my knowledge ran out quite quickly. So I turned to the County Council website, and there is a single line saying that further education is for ages 16 to 18. So that wasn't very helpful. But I do think there is an important point there. It is a complicated situation. And there is a National Careers Service, but that also didn't give me the information that I needed to look at for the local situation. So I think the County Council, working with the Combined Authority, could actually help to signpost what the situation is in Cambridgeshire, so that students and families who are not acquainted with the system can find the information and begin to make decisions from a more informed place. At the moment, your source of information is the sixth form centres themselves, which of course are saying, we're brilliant, come and study here. But actually, if you know the situation, then you can start to assess those different colleges. So I hope that the County Council and the Combined Authority can work together and look at how they might be able to do a bit of signposting.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks a lot. Councillor Deter.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to thank Councillor Tong for putting this forward. I think it's really important that we look at how we can be working collaboratively with the CPCA, but also other organisations too. I think that this is an issue that's not going to go away, and anything that we can do to further prevent this, but also provide awareness, I think is really important. I was asked recently what keeps me up at night, and I think it's this, it's youth unemployment and trying to find the way out of this, because it does seem like it's going to be a long struggle. So I just want to say I'm going to be supporting this motion, and I think it is very important, and thank you, Councillor Tong, for putting this forward.
Thank you very much. Councillor Watt.
Thank you, Chair. I was an employer of mostly young men for over 30 years. So I've seen a fair few problems. I found myself not only to just be a boss, directing people to site to carry out work, I was also a mentor and a social worker. And in some cases, I was a father figure to some of these lads who didn't have fathers. I have to say that over the years, I was always willing to give the young person a go. But I always felt that government legislation, albeit well meant, was acting against the employer. For example, the insurance companies, generally speaking, will not insure people in a work van until they're at least 25 years of age. Well, that may not sound very significant to you, but if you're going to take on a 16 or 18-year-old lad, you've got to ferry him around like he's royalty for the first few years, and then he's got the problem of getting into work. Because he can't hold any form of license, he can't operate any of the machinery or equipment. So there's just no incentive to do it. But I'd also like to share my experience of trying to engage staff, young people. Very often the case was that they'd ring up because they'd been told to go and chase for a job, and I would offer them the opportunity of a trial, and I'd be looking forward to them turning up at 7 a.m. on the Monday morning, and they just never showed up. So I think society needs to put higher expectations on courtesy and punctuality and reliability, and that would certainly help the problem as well. So I'm definitely all for giving the youngsters a chance.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Watt.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thanks a lot. Councillor Rees.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much, Councillor Tong, for bringing this motion. I think, most of us, especially those of us who've recently gone through applying for jobs, however, whatever age you are, it is a really difficult system. It can have a big effect on self-esteem. So the idea that people are lazy seems ridiculous to me. But so I think we do have a real problem across the nation here, and we need to be ready for how we're going to address this in Cambridgeshire. I really hope that we can also see that this is an opportunity. This can be a positive, right? The very high numbers of young people not in education, employment, or training. This is an opportunity for us to rethink and put in new pathways for school leavers. The weather is changing, work is changing. We need a workforce who have the skills to deliver climate adaptation. So the climate crisis is demanding that we respond with new jobs, new skills. This is how and what crops we grow, how we build infrastructure and roads, how we generate energy, how we keep cool, how we irrigate. So I really welcome this motion, hope it can be used as an opportunity to create more jobs to adapt Cambridgeshire. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bradnam, Councillor Tierney.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to thank Councillor Tong for bringing forward. Oh, that's fun. My laptop's gone to a completely different place. Thank you, Councillor Tong, for bringing forward this motion. I'm fortunate in that in my village we have a number of alternatives providers of alternative education, and these support young people seeking work. It covers a range. There are the Phoenix Trust that offer education and work opportunities for young people with learning difficulties, but also we have Red Balloon in two forms. One is their learner centre, but also they have Red Balloon of the Air that support young people online with education and also support them seeking work. And this is so important. It's just one little tiny bit in this cog amongst this array of services that we can offer young people who have difficulty learning and seeking work in conventional education and conventional career progression. So I'm absolutely supportive of this motion, which seeks to encourage our officers to support these alternative sources of education and encourage young people of all abilities to be able to thrive in the things that they do best. And so I'm absolutely supportive of this motion and thank Councillor Tong for bringing it forward.
Thank you. Councillor Tierney.
Yes, thank you so much for the motion on this important subject. I hope you all excuse a very brief anecdote. My first job when I was at school was on a market stall, and I used to get up before school, set up the market stall, work the day at school, then at the end of school go and break it down. And I did that for a year. And then one day I was told I wasn't needed anymore because the stall was moving to a different area. So what did I do? The next day, I walked along the industrial area, I knocked on every business and I said, I'm looking for a job. And before I got to the end of the industrial area, I'd got a job. That's not calling any current person lazy because things have changed. And I think until we look at, honestly, what has changed from the 1980s to now to make it so that people can no longer just walk down the industrial area and there are jobs all over the place and people willing to give young people a chance. Until we look at that honestly, we're never going to resolve this problem. It doesn't matter how much talking and bureaucracy we do, because the simple truth is well-intentioned changes in the past have led to this outcome. And if no one's willing to admit that, we won't fix it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Black.
Thank you very much, Chair. I too have had some experience of unemployment and looking for work. Once under the Thatcher recession many years ago, and then once again much more recently. And I did find it was much more hassle the second time, and I was made to jump through loads of hoops. I mean, possibly because in November I was telling the department that I wanted to be a punch chauffeur, but that's the experience I had. I'd like to address Councillor Watt's intervention. Is we get far too much of people saying that it's all the public sector's fault, and Councillor Watts criticised government legislation, and then the barrier that he quoted was caused by insurance companies. The example he gave was that insurance companies won't let under 20-year-olds drive a van or operate machinery. Well, if that's the case, actually legislation might be the solution rather than the problem here. It's not a public sector failing. But I welcome the motion coming forward. The Trussell Trust has welcomed the interim Milburn report and has said that it captures what young people facing hardship across the UK repeatedly tell the Trussell Trust, that inadequate mental health support, low incomes, unaffordable housing and a challenging labour market are driving hardship and creating major barriers to work. And that has been happening for many years now. And I think we've got to get away from blaming the young people. We have done so much to try and push young people to do something about this, but we have to look at the system and what they are facing and change the barriers to getting them into work. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. In the absence of other speakers, I'd like to ask Councillor Whelan, who seconded, to sum up. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'm pleased to second this motion, and also thank you to Councillor Tong for bringing this important issue to the Council and for accepting my input into the motion. Although we sit in different political groups, this is an area where I believe we should be able to find common purpose. The future prospects of young people in Cambridgeshire should not be a party political dividing line. The Milburn interim report is stark. 1 in 8 young people are not in education, employment or training. But what is particularly important is that this is not simply young people lacking aspiration. The amended motion recognises that many young people face structural barriers and a labour market that has become harder to enter. I recall the time when I was growing up, people would leave one factory at the end of one day and start in the next factory along the following day. And when they got fed up there, they'd move on to the next factory. It matters in Cambridgeshire as we're often seen as a very prosperous county, but opportunity is not evenly shared. Young person in rural village without reliable transport, care experience, young person with SEND, someone struggling with anxiety or poor mental health may face very different prospects from the headline picture of our local economy. As a Liberal Democrat administration, we are already committed to prevention, early help, social mobility, and giving people the support they need to live independent and fulfilling lives. This motion fits with that approach. It recognises the work already happening through youth progression, adult learning and skills, connect to work, support for young people with SEND, public health, youth services and partnership work with a combined authority. But also asks the right question: how do we make sure this work is joined up and understood by members and focused on outcomes rather than simply activity? The report requested by this motion should help us understand the local data properly and the different patterns across our districts, rural communities and areas of deprivation. That is exactly the sort of evidence-led approach this council should take. So I'm pleased to second this motion, and I hope members across the chamber will support this, not as a symbolic gesture, but as a practical step towards ensuring that every young person in Cambridgeshire has a fair chance to learn, work and thrive. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Tong, would you like to sum up?
I would. Can I ask how long I have? Is it only 20 seconds? That would have to be very fast. 3 minutes. I won't use all that time. Now, firstly, I do actually want to thank all of the councillors in this room who have shared their personal experiences on this subject. We've had Labour councillors, Lib Dem councillors, even Conservative councillors talk about their own experiences with the job market and the job hunt. And the reason I think this is so important is because this is a very personal issue. And I think when you are looking at reports, it can often be tempting to forget these are real human lives. This isn't just numbers. And every time we are making somebody struggle to get a job, there are real impacts on their mental and physical well-being. It's really, really sad. And I think it's great that we are taking action to address this, as well as all of the great stuff we've done already. A couple of things I wanted to quickly acknowledge, and this is something very quick, which is several councillors, including Councillor Wyatt and others, mentioned that skills were being wasted. And this is something that I I think really resonates with me, because growing up, I always remember being really confused by the fact that when I was walking around, even as a very small child, even at the age of like 6 or 7, I knew there were people who were struggling to get a job. But I'd look around my city and my neighborhood and I'd see all these things that needed doing, things like cleaning up the streets, things like fixing the roads. And even now, as Councillor Rees mentioned, we have really pressing issues like handling the climate crisis. And the fact that we had people desperate to work and so much work that needed doing, that just didn't make sense to me at all. Like, it really, really confused me, because to me, we need to be taking advantage of these people who are desperate to contribute. And it really shows that somewhere at a fundamental level, our job market is broken. We need to make sure that people are able to contribute and build a job market and a society around that. I'll leave it there.
Thank you very much. Members, can I venture that there may be a general consensus in the room in support of this motion? If anybody disagrees, could you raise your hand now? Okay. So Democratic Services, can we please now move to the vote?
Members in favour of the altered motion, please press the button underneath the word yes. Members against the altered motion, please press the button underneath the word no. Members wishing to abstain, please press the button underneath the word abstain. Chair, I'm now closing the vote. Chair, the result of the vote is 49 votes in favour, 5 against and 1 abstention. The motion is therefore carried.
Thank you very much, members. That concludes discussion of our third motion. I'd like to now move on to our fourth motion submitted by Councillor Machini. Can I ask Councillor Machini to move and speak to a motion as set out on pages 6 and 7 of the Council's agenda? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Let's see if we can spice things up a bit, shall we? We have been saying for a while that our procurement model for highways is inadequate. Implications of getting the procurement model wrong are severe. The poor contract we inherited from the Conservatives, and which we inexplicably recently chose to extend, despite its poor performance, is a big part of why our roads are in such a mess. Last year, this council spent £58 million of taxpayers' money on roads. The government awarded last year £188 million to Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, an unprecedented amount, which of course is still not good enough, but an unprecedented amount. And yet residents keep telling us on the doorstep, as well as in every quality of life survey that we do, that our roads are terrible. Bringing services back in-house would give us the control we need to deliver value for money for residents and the transparency residents deserve to see how their money is being spent. We are bequeathing a suboptimal contract to the authorities that are going to succeed us under LGR, and this is simply because we didn't start reprocuring in good time when we had the chance. We can learn from our mistakes and do a piece of work now to establish the feasibility, benefits and implications of delivering a mixed economy. This will provide the new authorities after LGR a valuable resource to help them choose the best model for service delivery. So I really hope that you can support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I understand, Councillor Bulat, you wish to second the motion. Do you wish to speak now or reserve your right?
Reserve my right, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, can I ask for speakers in this motion? Councillor Wyatt, Councillor Morgan.
Thank you, Chair. I would love it if this was a practical request. I really would. But it's not. So when I came to this council a year ago, all bright-eyed and excited, one of the first things I asked was, how much more can we insource with highways? You want to talk about solving the NEET crisis? I had this great idea. Can we set up a whole program? Can we have an apprenticeship scheme and turn Cambridgeshire into a highways academy and employ everybody to fix everything? It would be great. Unfortunately, like many new and naive councillors, I very swiftly collided with reality. The part of the problem of our years of underinvestment is that we don't have the capital that we would need to invest in such a program. It would take years. The work that Councillor Maschini is asking for was already completed last year, before my election and when Labour was still part of the administration, and the conclusion was the mixed model that we're working with now. If we wanted to change things, we'd need to make a really nuanced long-term plan, which honestly I'd really love to do. But then somebody's national government sent us a letter saying, well, soz peeps, throw out all your long-term hopes and dreams, LGR is happening, and we're not going to exist in 2 years. So the amount of effort that we would have to put in would take away from all of the stuff that our officers need to be focusing on right now. We've just got a bunch of changes in our contract. We've made some real improvements to our asset management strategy that will require a lot of real effort from our officers who are already overstretched if we want to get the best value out of the effort they've already made. So forgive me for putting my lot behind practical solutions rather than duplicating effort on something that A, we've already done, and B, won't necessarily even be our fault choice to follow up on in the future. Sorry, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Morgan.
Robin has already hit most of the bingo numbers I wanted to hit. So I will just sort of make a slightly more political comment that I think this motion is kind of an indication of the false dichotomy that Labour Party members often subscribe to, that the public provision is necessarily good and that private provision is necessarily bad. It's often a dichotomy that plays in the opposite direction in certain other parties. But I think in reality, there's rarely one good way of approaching a problem. And that's why the officers have already considered whether a public or private option is the best for us at the moment. And at the moment, they have already considered these options and thought that the private delivery for most services is the best approach at the moment. Why waste scarce time relitigating a recently answered question?
Thank you. Councillor Clark, then Councillor Watt.
Thank you, Chair. A question for Councillor Maschini, really. The officers who would do the work that is proposed by this motion are the same officers who have to do the new quality controls that are in the new contracts. Which would Councillor Maschini prefer they do? I'm asking for a genuine answer, please. Cambridgeshire is already ahead of the game and ahead of most other councils when it comes to in-housing. And that there is a lot of good work being done within the council already. But given LGR, given the inability to sign a long-term contract at the moment, we are where we are, and that is the outcome of the government that we have, the Labour government that we have now. I'm finding it quite tricky to have this motion and it be framed as fixing the roads, given the constraints on this council are funding from the government and LGR, and given that the Labour group voted against putting extra money into highways in February, it doesn't really add up. But I would just add it's a message of thanks to our officers who are doing wonderful work in tricky situations. So a real thanks to the work that they do. And I hope we can work more constructively and build on the good work that is already being done by this council, much more so than many other councils across the country.
Thank you. Councillor Watt, then Councillor Black.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I actually worked as a subcontractor for local authorities back in the 1980s when we had the direct labour organisations. I worked for South Yorkshire, Leicestershire, Lincolnshire and Cambridgeshire. Some were better than others. Mostly they were not very good at all. Too often they were disorganised and inefficient. Corners were cut. Workmanship suffered. And because it was the council, bad workmanship was brushed under the carpet. If that was not the case, then the taxpayers would be on the hook for correcting bad workmanship. The theory is that when the private sector messes up, the financial hit is taken by the private contractor. That is the advantage. of going private. Yet a very wise veteran of the road mending industry once explained to me that despite the inefficiencies, direct labour can keep private sector prices honest. The private market naturally tends towards exploiting the monopoly. Why not? They're out to make money. But a credible in-house option puts the competitive discipline back onto the private sector. So I will support a partial in-house route of, say, 30% of road mending being done in-house, providing it is tightly monitored to guarantee high standards at a fair price. There must, however, be robust quality control, which is already currently lacking. We must guard against wasteful practices and entrenched behaviours that I saw firsthand in the 1980s, and ensure workforce flexibility and performance are non-negotiable. So I say, let's do the feasibility work and not forget the lessons from the past. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Black, and then Councillor Tierney.
Thank you, Chair. Well, a bit of Liberal Democrat fence sitting there where people say that perhaps they'd like something public sector, but always, every time, it goes down to they're just going to cave in and have the private sector. Now, under the joint administration, we set a goal of using insourcing with the intention of stopping money leaching out into private profit, sometimes disappearing to places like the Cayman Islands, and getting better service from work being done with the intention of providing better service, rather than the main intention being private concerns making lots of money. In adults and health, we haven't achieved what we wanted from insourcing. We just had another terrible Care Quality Commission report on a care provider with contracts with the council, the care home Oakley Care. These are not just isolated incidents, it is systematic. And I've raised this, I get told the public sector can't compete because allowing staff to join the local government pension scheme would wipe out the saving from eliminating profit.
Point of order, please, Chair.
Thinking we have to put
Just 1 second. Councillor Black, we've got a point of order.
Yes, Chair, I need clarification on the terrible review that we got in adult health, because that was a good report. So can you please clarify?
Councillor Black, carry on.
So let it sink in that we put up with uncaring providers because we won't allow these essential workers a decent pension. Now, I'll address the rest of my remarks to insourcing and highways. The motion says mixed economy, and I'm not sure it should, because on any reasonable assessment, highways repair in this county is overwhelmingly and unreasonably privatised. We should have a mixed economy with the council dealing directly with different contractors and an in-house workforce showing how it should be done and measuring how well they're done. Or better still, it all being not for profit. But instead, we have one big contract for the term service contract and much of the work contracted through them. And a company that attracts immense public disapproval, so ashamed with their work that they've changed their name. So the millstone is now called M, but we know who you are. The Labour government has given an generous settlement to enable councils to mend potholes and undo 15 years of Tory neglect. All the potholes are now Liberal Democrat potholes, but relying on the same failing contractors, we are unlikely to see the improvement that we should.
Thank you. Can I just remind all members to be very careful about making sweeping statements about providers, whether they be private or in-house? Thank you. Councillor Tierney.
Thank you, Chair. It will surprise Councillor Black to know that I don't have any issue whatsoever with an entirely in-house workforce for highways. And I made that case to my group 15 years ago, lost the argument at the time. We do that with bins. After all, we don't hire companies to collect our bins. We do that in-house broadly. So I don't have any issue with that, as long as the economics works and somebody can show us how it's going to be effective for the taxpayer. The problem with this entire motion and every comment that everybody has made is that it's what I call the big lie. And that is that we all stand for election saying the highways are awful because current council are running them badly and we could do much better. And every one of us is not telling the truth, including myself. I will admit I've used the same tactic myself, and looking back on it, I don't think I ever will again. And the simple truth is we don't spend enough on highways because we haven't got that much money. I mean, let's just be honest about it. The leader of this council told people there was £750 million worth of work that needed doing. It's getting worse every year. What we really need to do is sit down together, non-politically, and say, what on earth are we going to do about it? We've got these other huge costs that we have to spend. We have to spend on our adult social care. We have to spend on our kids. Otherwise, people die. We've got to look after those people. How are we going to fix the roads when we've got nowhere near enough money? But nobody will honestly ask that question. Instead, they spend half the time saying, "Oh, it was the Conservatives, then it was the Lib Dem Labour Independent Coalition. Now it's the Lib Dems." All of us have got the same problem. We don't have enough money. How are we going to fix that? We need to talk about it honestly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Beckett.
Thank you very much, Chair. So firstly, I want to point out, I think Elisa started her speech here by saying that she wanted to spice things up. And I really don't think that's what we should be doing. I think we all should believe that we want better roads for everyone across Cambridgeshire. This shouldn't be about political point scoring. This should be about doing what we can. I mean, if she wants to point out that, the government have said they're going to give us, not they have, they're going to give us 230 million over the next 4 years. 188 million over the next 4 years. I'll point out we need 230 million to stay still. This administration has been investing record amounts in highways. We've increased our funding by more than double, I think it is, over the last 4 years, increasing massively the amount that we're spending on highway maintenance. I do need to point out as well, when you said that we should have started early on this, we did start early at looking what we should be doing about procurement. I remember, as part of the joint administration, starting this way back, I think it was year 2 of the joint administration, saying we need to be looking at what the future is. These contracts take a long, long time to do, and therefore you need to be looking at them early. You need to be looking at them early, you need to be figuring out how to do it, but you also have to be figuring out how to do it well. It's also really important to point out what we already do in-house. We already do significantly more in-house than many other local authorities. We do design in-house, we do strategy and modelling in-house, we do the client function in-house, we do inspections in-house, we do road safety in-house, we do enforcement in-house. We're now bringing in highway maintenance rangers who will be doing other small work in-house. It is not like everything goes to one big provider. And in fact, I have to say we've been using a far greater mix of providers than ever before. We go out through the Eastern Highways Alliance to be looking at who the right providers are who can give us the best value for money in the best places. We have apprentices. We introduced that as part of the joint administration. We've been working a lot on all of this. I do need to open people's eyes, though, to the benefits and disbenefits of in-house. This winter, we had one of the worst highways pothole crises I've seen. We had tons of potholes. I think we're all aware of that. Now, we were able to work with our provider to massively increase the number of crews that we had. We went from 6 crews in the summer to 30 crews over winter. If we were doing that in-house, we could not have scaled up in that same way. That is some of the benefits of not being in-house, while also there are other benefits of in-house. Now, I have no doubt that any new organisation that comes in will want to look at what the correct contract is for them. If I am in any new administration, any new unitary, one of the first things I will be saying on day one is we need to look at what our highways contract is and what we want. This administration, though, did the right thing. We've extended...
Thank you, Councillor Beckett. Sorry.
The timer wasn't timing counting down.
No, but I have a timer over here. Thank you.
Oh, I was looking at the one on the screen.
I'm sorry. Councillor Howitt.
I've listened carefully to the majority group's interventions here, and I want us to find a consensus if we possibly can. But when it's said that our resolution, if passed, would duplicate something that had already been considered and decided, I don't know when or where that happened. A serious investigation into an insourcing option. And I hope in the summing up we'll hear the answer to that, because I'm not sure that it has happened, which is the reason behind bringing this resolution. With greatest respect to our Lib Dem friends, the Labour group does not believe public good, private bad. We believe, as my colleague Mike just said, in a genuine mixed economy. And I think what the public might be hearing from this council is public bad, private good, because we never seem to give serious consideration to the alternative options. I think the argument that this would divert our officers from doing their job is not correct, because we've consulted the officers and gained their approval for the wording of this resolution. It's up to council whether it passes or not, but this is something we've discussed in detail with our officers. And Chair, with greatest respect, it's not a sweeping statement to say in relation to the current contractor, not us as politicians, but the public in Cambridgeshire believe that they have failed us on road and pavement maintenance and should be replaced. And I think we should heed what the public are saying to us. Yes, the Labour government has given an extra £10 million for repairing potholes locally, and we should give proper recognition to that. But to those who say this is playing politics, all we're asking for is a serious consideration of an insourcing option, which in practice this council has never done. And I ask you to be persuaded by that and to vote for this resolution.
Thanks. And just to clarify, my reference to sweeping statement wasn't with regard to highways, it was adult social care. Councillor Thornhill. It was indicated you wanted to speak. So, Councillor, if I have no other speakers, Councillor Bulat, you reserve your right to speak.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And let me start by kindly suggesting if the administration wants fewer political points, maybe they should stop blaming the Labour government at every opportunity instead of taking accountability for their own decisions. And then
Councillor Bulat, would you mind move it a little closer to the microphone? Thanks.
Of course, Chair. Now, I went to an LGA leadership training session last year, and the trainer asked us to guess which party he was supposed to be part of in the past. And after all the wrong guesses, he said, you know, you forgot the officer party. And no, he didn't used to be a Lib Dem, because he actually used to work as an officer and had very good advice to share, especially for us being in opposition. I want to make a couple of points about the briefing note, because I think it's entirely appropriate for officers to give us briefings and recommendations. But on issues such as highways, the highway service and the contract, there needs to be some political leadership and accountability rather than blaming everyone else, LGR, previous Tory councils, the mayor, you name it. I'm really disappointed, I have to say, to see the negative briefing saying the motion is not advisable, because this sounds like a subjective view rather than because the motion has significantly been watered down since the first version I've written for the previous council. And actually, I want to thank officers for their time, because they did sit down with me and we worked through actual wording that is not only deliverable, but can be done within existing resources. Because what I initially wrote, which was much bolder than what Councillor Machini proposed today, was not advised for various reasons. So whilst that might not have been advisable, I'm quite confident that what we have in front of us today actually can be done, because the officer advised me so. And I have to ask in general, what is the point of actually having council motions and debate if a request of a report to come before committee is not advisable? Surely we should ask for that, and we could ask for that. And if it's voted for, so be it.
Yeah. Point of order.
Councillor Beckett.
I don't think we should be criticising officers in full council with their briefing notes on things. They are designed to be impartial, and I don't think it's appropriate.
I'm not criticizing officers. I'm saying I have received advice from officers, which I appreciate. And that's why I'm confident that what we're debating today actually is approved by officers, because they actually advised me that the text is okay and can be delivered within existing resources, which is my response to the point made by the administration that we shouldn't be wasting our money on this. May I continue now, Chair?
Continue, Councillor Bulat.
Okay, thank you. 2 points about some of the advice that have been given as well. And I just want to comment, just so people have the full facts in front of them. The 2 arguments against in-house, all risks being retained by the authority. I suspect most residents actually want more accountability by the council. And the second is this long implementation lead time. And of course, stuff like this does take time, because that's precisely why this needed to be planned some time ago. Because if you actually never explore alternative models, you guarantee there won't be choice to be made. Failing to plan today, of course, simply means fewer choices tomorrow. And I also want to correct the statement that an extension of the current arrangement was approved by the Highways and Transport Committee. I quote, just for the public information, of course, the committee met in private with delegated authority to negotiate the terms of the contract because there was no realistic alternative presented. And then we subsequently didn't have a vote on the actual contract. The motion does not commit this council to insourcing. It simply asks for the evidence. It asks for a high-level report, and it shouldn't be controversial. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Machini, would you like to sum up?
Thank you very much, Chair. So we are being told that spending resource on this work is not advisable because we already have a highways procurement strategy in place. Yes, are you getting the message? We know we've already got a system in place and we think it's bad. That is why we bring the motion. It's not a difficult thing to get through your head. If the administration wishes to stick by what we are already doing, and in doing so they wish to argue to your residents that what they see is good enough, that is on you. Officers of this council, it's not their job to argue for change to policy. That is the administration's job. If the administration thinks that what we've got is good enough, just say so and stop making excuses.
Thank you, Councillor Machini. Certainly not a consensus, I would think, in support of the motion. So Democratic Services, can we move to the vote, please?
Members in favour of the motion, please press the button underneath the word yes. Members against the motion, please press the button underneath the word no. Members wishing to abstain, please press the button underneath the word abstain. Chair, I'm now closing the vote. Chair, the result of the vote is 10 votes in favour, 42 against and 2 abstentions. The motion is therefore lost.
Thank you. Thank you, members. Members, it is 12:15. We would normally break at 12:30. With the consent from all of you and Councillor Nessinger, I would like to start the debate on this motion, please. So can I ask Councillor Nessinger to move to speak to a motion as set out on pages 7 and 8 of the council agenda? And I believe Councillor Whelan is to second. Thank you.
Thank you. A few weeks ago, it was my great privilege to be invited to visit Ukraine. The invitation came via some colleagues in the European Parliament, and it was an extraordinary trip. The purpose of the visit was to attend a conference on economic resilience in a time of war, and there were many local government leaders from Ukraine at the conference, along with politicians from across the European Union. The debate was deeply moving and powerful. The resistance of Ukraine as a country has impressed the whole world, but it is not without a cost. Between the Ukrainian local government leaders at the conference, there was an extraordinary difference between those whose areas were lying in the east of the country and those in the west. The area I visited was in the far west of Ukraine, a beautiful city called Chernivtsi, which felt extremely safe and where there has only been one drone strike during the war. Many families and businesses have relocated to the area from the east of the country. In the west, the war is bringing opportunity to other places as well as pain and fear, but the difference in the east is extraordinary, and rebuilding in the east will take an enormous amount of effort and time when the war eventually comes to an end. While I was there, I was also deeply impressed by the technological advances that are being made in Ukraine. War has always been a driver of technological innovation, and as the war in Ukraine drags on, the advances in drone production and the way they are used are proving crucial to Ukrainian success. The conference was designed to highlight the opportunities, showing expertise and knowledge, as well as indicating the need for partnership working across regions and nations to encourage economic growth through partnership working. One of the key things that struck me during the trip was the enormous benefit which flows through smoothing barriers to trade across borders. I travelled to Ukraine through Romania, a country which is enjoying impressive economic growth through its access to the European single market. The miles of queues and lorries at the Ukrainian border were painfully reminiscent of the queues in Kent. While physical barriers are deeply unhelpful, there is little that we as a county or region can do to change those. However, there are other barriers to trade and cooperation across national boundaries that we can influence for the benefit of our own population as well as for the benefit of Ukraine. Some examples of barriers to trade where we may be able to help as a place are to help businesses and individuals understand things such as business insurance, to understand legislative frameworks in different countries, and to provide forums for investors and business leaders to meet and understand the opportunities available. There are also issues of language barriers and the validity of professional qualifications. Supporting Ukrainians living in Cambridgeshire to become fluent in English and to use their professional qualifications wherever possible will not only help them...
Thank you, Councillor Singer. Sorry. Take some time
No, that's
in
okay.
your summing up. Councillor Whelan, would you like to speak now or reserve your right?
I'll speak now if that's okay. Right, I'm pleased to second this motion as it supports our responsibilities for the economy, communities, residents and businesses and our local resilience. Cambridgeshire has welcomed Ukrainian residents and families who have fled war. Many are now part of our schools, workplaces, libraries and communities. I spent a hugely enjoyable afternoon learning about Ukrainian culture at Ely Library over the weekend, so I saw in action how supporting them is not only the right thing to do morally, it is part of the practical work of community cohesion, skills, integration and well-being. The motion also recognises that Ukraine's defence has protected not only its own sovereignty, but the security of Europe more widely. A more aggressive Russia is a threat to stability, trade, energy, security and confidence across the continent. And those impacts reach local economies such as ours. There may, of course, be political disagreement about how far a county council should go in responding to an international conflict, but this motion is about our legitimate local functions, economic resilience, skills, libraries, community-facing services, procurement, social value and partnership working. It does not commit to new spending outside the normal budget process, and it explicitly asks that work be done within existing resources unless council agrees. It is also practical. It asks that businesses are helped to access reliable information about investment, partnership, insurance and risk mitigation, all things which are stopping trade and actually preventing trade and improvements in this country. It asks that our services continue to support Ukrainian residents through English language provision, employment and skills support, libraries and signposting. And it asks us to explore lawful, proportionate ways to support reconstruction, resilience and cultural links where they align with our duties and priorities. That is sensible, compassionate and strategically responsible. Please support this motion.
Thank you very much. Somebody who used to do business in Ukraine and visited 4 or 5 times, I'll be very interested in the outcome of the debate. Can I have speakers, please? Councillor Sieff.
Thank you, Chair. This is a very serious motion with some very serious resolutions proposed on probably one of the most serious matters facing the world today. It's very ambitious, and I do not demur one iota from anything that is being proposed. And I hope you, this chamber, will support it unanimously. However, there is a limit to what we can do, and I fear that the long-term future of Ukraine as an independent and secure nation may lie completely outside, well, everybody's hands. It's possible that if it joins NATO and the European Union, that may help it towards some resolution. I'm hopeful that the $90 billion European support fund that was approved yesterday will take it a little bit closer to solving some of those problems. But definitively, the only solution is, I think, the demise of that thug, and I can't bring myself to use the word President Putin and his henchmen. That's what will eventually bring peace to Ukraine. But there is something that we might be able to do. The pension fund, Cambridgeshire Pension Fund, is at the present time setting an investments strategy. It does not make direct investments. That will be done through our new investment partner, pension pool partner, Borders to Coast. If this motion is passed, and I sincerely hope it will be, In our discussions on investment strategy, I would like to bring this paper to the attention of colleagues there. And if they then approve that we should be looking to opportunities, I will then take that to Borders to Coast, and they will then be able to manage investments.
Thank you, Councillor Seif. I've got Councillor Howitt, Councillor Galbraith.
Yeah, I put my hand up because I hadn't seen any other hands up from opposition groups in the council. So I want to make clear, I believe this should get unanimous support. I commend Councillor Nethsinger for bringing the resolution forward and for what she said. I myself was involved in helping to organise a conference last year, planning for reconstruction at the end of the conflict in Ukraine. And when we have our debates, as we are doing today in this council chamber, the suffering and the experience of the Ukrainian people and what they have had to put up with for 4 years pales into insignificance the differences that we have in this chamber. So I think that this is a good attempt to say we'll do everything we can do, and I will certainly, as will the Labour councillors, be supporting this resolution.
Thank you very much. Councillor Galbraith.
Thank you, Chair. I speak from practical experience. Recently, I was on the board of a company in Ukraine. I worked there 1 week every month from 2014 to 2020, just outside Kherson in Novakhovka. I also was on the board of the company which had offices in London. During that time, we exported over 1,000 lorries from Ukraine to the UK, to many of the most well-known brand names in the UK. That stopped. The practicality of Ukraine and exporting all comes down to one major point. That is insurance, actually, which the proposer has mentioned. But at the moment, if you expect to get a lorry in Ukraine to be insured, you're wasting your time. The cost of the insurance is probably double the cost of the lorry, the actual cost of the lorry. It makes the product from Ukraine not uncompetitive. The motion itself is very worthy in the sense of the promotion of the local Ukrainian families still here. I support that entirely. But the practicality, I'm afraid, and from somebody working practically and still talking to people in Ukraine, it's just naive, to be quite honest. And really, when you get down to the people at the sharp end of business in Ukraine, at the moment, it's impossible. As I say, worthy motion, but let's not get carried away. The chances of us actually getting product to come out of the Ukraine at the present time is very low indeed. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Ioannidis.
Thank you, Chair. Following on from my colleague, it's not whether about we support Ukraine. The issue is whether Cambridgeshire County Council should be involving itself in business investment advice, insurance risk and mitigation for companies exploring opportunities in Ukraine as well. It's not our job. That is for central government, trade bodies, insurers, lawyers, chambers of commerce and export specialists. So this motion, I feel, goes far beyond support for Ukrainian residents here. It talks about business investment packs, local business organisations, libraries, skill services, procurement, social value, reconstruction, resilience, cultural exchange and community links. So when this motion says within existing resources, that doesn't mean at no cost. It means officer time. It means meetings, legal checks, procurement checks, coordination and reports, and that time has to come from somewhere. So residents expect this council to focus on roads, on SEND, care, transport, libraries, social care and value for money. We should support Ukrainian residents in Cambridgeshire, and we should support national schemes like Homes for Ukraine, maybe where councils have a clear funded role. But we shouldn't turn the county council into an international trade advisor. So for that reason, I oppose this motion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Martin, then Councillor Clark.
Thank you very much, Chair.
I just want to say that I do support this motion. I think this is the right thing to do. We were the first country internationally to support Ukraine when the war started, and I'm very proud of all the work that we have done nationally and locally to support our Ukrainian friends throughout the conflict. I do just want to disagree with Councillor Ioannidis' point, though, unfortunately, because as much as I agree with the sentiment that he reached, I disagree with the point, because I don't see this report and this motion being we as a county council are going to provide the advice. We are going to be a signpost. We're going to direct people to the right place rather than giving the advice ourselves. And I think that's the right thing to do. This conflict isn't going to end anytime soon. Our Ukrainian friends are going to be with us for a lot longer. They're not here by choice. They are here because they had to go somewhere rather than stay in a war-torn country. And I think we should support them as much as we can whilst they are here, and make sure that they are welcome, because they are welcome so long as the conflict goes on in Ukraine. And I hope that we continue to support Ukraine as much as humanly possible. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, it's so disappointing hearing that there's not consensus on this. We are a public body here. One of the key strategies of this council is that we do public good. We should have value for money in the things that we do, but not everything that we do is just about the bottom line. We have responsibilities beyond that. Our responsibilities to our taxpayers are there, but our responsibilities to do good across Cambridgeshire is also there. So to argue that we should vote down this motion because it'll have some cost associated with it, I mean, I have no response. Do we have no sort of moral feeling that we should do good? It's really pleasing to hear that most councillors will be supporting this, but I mean, I don't have the words to express my reaction to the fact that we have people in this room who really think that we shouldn't be helping residents in Cambridgeshire who have families in a country that has been invaded by a hostile power. I don't have any way of explaining that, but I hope everyone here will support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Manning.
And just to follow on, Chair, from the point that Councillor Clark made, we actually do benefit from Ukrainians living in the UK. I've got an amazing Ukrainian colleague at work who's settled here. She's decided to make her life here, as many people have said, not by choice. I've got a free Ukrainian friend in London who's a fantastic dancer, and she again has decided to settle here, and that benefits our society. So this is the central point, isn't it, about immigration? There's a benefit to immigration in all sorts of directions, culturally, economically, in skills. You know, there's good reasons to do all this stuff.
Thank you very much. If there are no other speakers, I'd like to come back to Councillor Nessinger, who I cut off in mid-flow, and she'll have an opportunity to say some of those things.
Thank you. I had slightly anticipated I might run over and therefore discussed it with Alison beforehand. The first thing I want to say, thank you to Councillor Galbraith for his knowledge on this. One of the things that I learnt at the conference is that the Austrian government are, as part of their contribution towards Ukraine, are in the process of setting up insurance to allow countries and other countries to trade with Ukraine, because they know insurance is a problem. Finding out about that and making sure that companies in this country and in Cambridgeshire know about it is one of the kinds of information that we can provide, and it could make a significant difference. It was extraordinarily moving being in Ukraine and seeing the determination and the unity showed by all those I met in the face of Putin's aggression. Chernovitsk is a city that has suffered less than many. The cafes and bars were open, the buildings undamaged. But even in Chernovitsk, there is a nightly curfew, and the faces of those from the city who have died on the front line are remembered in the main square. Every day there is a minute's silence, and watching the unity of that place in that minute's silence on the day that I left was absolutely extraordinary. The buses stopped, everyone comes out of the shops. Every single day they remember those on the front line, and we need to remember them too, because the threat from Putin's Kremlin is not something that is far away. It threatens the whole of Europe. Russia have fired on Russian warships have fired on yachts in the English Channel, and Russian submarines threaten our coasts. The Ukrainians on the front line are giving their
lives every day defending democracy in Europe. And one of the things I want to say is that it's in some ways it's quite good that Councillor Tierney is able to say he doesn't agree to this. That's what we're defending, the ability to disagree in a civilized way in a room rather than with violence. And it is so important. So thank you to all those who have supported it. Thank you to Councillor Tierney for his comments. It's fine that we disagree, but I do think that this is a really important thing that we can do in a relatively small thing that will help us to help Ukraine and to help our own area. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There isn't consensus on the motion overall. So Democratic Services, I would like to now move to the vote. Thank you.
Members in favour of the motion, please press the button underneath the word yes. Members against the motion, please press the button underneath the word no. Members wishing to abstain, please press the button underneath the word abstain. Continue voting because I think is the voting system. Who do we? Chair, I'm now closing the vote. Chair, the result of the vote is 47 votes in favour, 4 against and 2 abstentions. The motion is therefore carried.
Thank you very much, members. It's now 12:35, so we'll take a break at this point. If members are agreeable, I would suggest 45 minutes, and therefore we come back at 1:20.
Chair, given that we've only got such a short time, I wonder whether members might be willing to have a shorter lunch. Could you just check with the meeting whether we really need 45 minutes, given that we've only got a very short time?
Okay, we have one motion to debate. Is 30 minutes acceptable as a break? Okay, so 1:05. Thank you. Members, welcome back. We now move to the sixth motion in today's agenda, submitted by Councillor Boulat. Can I ask Councillor Boulat to move and speak to a motion set out on pages 8 and 9 of the Council agenda? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, our role as councillors is to highlight issues that matter to our residents. And for residents in St. Ives South and Needingworth, perhaps one of the issues I received the most correspondence about was the A141 and St. Ives improvement study. I actually haven't seen so many people in a local consultation event as I have last year. So many people attended that the team even ran out of materials in one of those events. This is, of course, very good for local democracy to see so many people attend consultation and submit responses. But this consultation has highlighted to me not only issues with the proposals, but also issues with the process. This is not only a local issue for me or for Councillor Keane, who is kindly seconding this motion today, or for other councillors in St. Ives and the surrounding area. It's also an issue about the strategy for the wider growth in our region. People that generally don't tend to oppose development if we have the proper infrastructure to go with it. But when you see a study starting back in 2018 and 6 million quid and 8 years later, you're not even at the outline business case, it's no surprise that many of our residents lose faith in the process. And we should also recognize, as I have highlighted in the motion, that the original project scope from several years ago is now many years old and circumstances have changed, and so have the available options. The evidence-based is the argument we're making in the motion. The evidence-based must be up to date, and the options that were unviable perhaps 5 years ago may be viable if we consider the level of planned growth in Huntingdonshire, and might even be necessary to consider at this stage. On a more positive note, I welcome the consultation report, which was recently published actually after we submitted this motion. I welcome the recognition in the consultation report of key concerns expressed by our residents in St. Ives and surrounding areas. And also I welcome the decision of the CPCA team to remove some of the more controversial elements of the proposals, such as the bus gate in St. Ives. And I do hope that other consultation recommendations will be implemented, such as addressing the HGV issues that many of our residents mention. The motions asks are uncontroversial, despite the slightly negative steer about the implementation of some of those asks. We have done many motions in this council asking the CPCA or other bodies to look at something, and as the first point in the recommendations. We've also done many motions asking for a committee report. I understand one is in the forward plan, but Councillor Keane and I want to ensure that some of the points we raise are addressed, especially the concerns on bus franchising, which will inevitably impact the bus package proposed in this A141 study. So I ask all members to actually read the two recommendations and think, are they sensible and can they be delivered? It's quite clear to me that they can, and they will contribute in keeping members informed. Thank you, Chair, and looking forward to the debate.
Thank you. Councillor Keane, I believe you're to second. Would you like to speak now or reserve your right?
I'll speak now, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm very pleased to second Councillor Boulat's motion. This motion, first of all, is not about opposing anything like growth, nor is it about predetermining the outcome of the outline business case. It is about ensuring that, as Councillor Boulat said, after 8 years of work and significant public investment, residents and members have confidence in the decision that will follow. I mean, both Councillor Boulat and I believe the A141 is one of the most important transport corridors in the county. Congestion affects our residents, the businesses, emergency services and public transport. We all recognise that improvements are needed. This motion really asks for three simple things: transparency, accountability and confidence. Transparency so that residents understand what is proposed, how much has been spent and what the timetable is. Accountability so members can properly scrutinise assumptions on roads, buses, active travel and future investments. And confidence because major infrastructure only succeeds when people believe every reasonable option has been considered and public money is being wisely spent. I particularly welcome the request for greater clarity over delivery timescales, funding assumptions and long-term viability. I don't think these are political questions, they're questions of good governance. Transport infrastructure cannot be viewed in isolation. It underpins economic growth. access to employment, housing delivery, and the long-term prosperity of Huntingdonshire. This motion does not tell engineers which solution to choose. It does not delay the project. It simply asks that decisions are informed, transparent, and capable of being explained to the people we represent. Whatever the outline business case ultimately recommends, members should be confident the recommendation has been properly tested, and residents should be confident that their concerns have been heard. That's why I asked members to support this.
Thank you very much. May I have other speakers, please, with regard to this motion? Councillor Beckett.
Thank you, Chair. I've read this motion carefully and I recognise the intent behind it, I really do. But I'd like to start with just how broad it is. In one motion, we're being asked to take a view on bus franchising risk, road capacity and bypass options, active travel provision, funding transparency and delivery timetables, and the Huntingdonshire local plan. That's 6 distinct policy areas, each with its own evidence base compressed into a single motion that we're expected to wade through without any of the thousands of pages of evidence that's gone behind it. It's worth being clear on what I believe has already happened during this process. In 2018, you had the original studies. 2021, the first public engagement in St Ives. November 2021, the Mayor formally merges the 2 schemes. In 2022, the Combined Authority Board votes to progress it and approves funding for St Ives local improvements. In July 2024, full committee progress report. In October 2024, the full public consultation, drop-ins, webinars, thousands of pages. And in October 2025, you have 56,000 households written to directly and more events in St Ives. These are the correct processes that listen to residents and inform direction. And this autumn, the outline business proposals will actually land at the Transport Committee. But no, apparently that's not enough. And we need a motion to say that some of this should be redone and reworked. None of that means that St Ives' problems aren't real. They are. Rat running, poor air quality, and a road network that hasn't kept pace is absolutely reasonable. But that's exactly why it deserves to be properly scoped, one issue at a time, not bundled into a single motion and relitigated here in one motion. So let's work together on this across party, issue by issue, and bring back something we can all properly back.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Kerr, Councillor Tong, and Councillor Wilson. No, Councillor Kerr and Councillor Tong.
Thank you, Chair. I've worked closely with Councillor Keane and Councillor Boulat on the issues around the A141 and the public consultation. I'm really grateful that they have listened to the public in St Ives and removed the bus gate that was proposed. It really is an ongoing issue, and I welcome any opportunity for the issues that the genuine issues that St Ives is facing. Some days you can't get out of St Ives. It takes an hour just to get out of St Ives. So anything that would help alleviate those issues and get the road network right for Huntingdonshire is important.
Very much. Councillor Tong.
Hello. Now, already it's been mentioned that this motion has a very, very wide scope, a very, very, very wide scope. And I'm approaching this with a completely free mind because I'll be honest, I'm not from St Ives. I don't know the area in question. So I have a few honest questions I'd like to ask. And if other members could hopefully give me their thoughts on this, that would be great. Now, I love the proposal for there to be great improvements to public transport and active travel, because I think that's what we desperately need right now. We need to be encouraging people to get out of their cars, to engage in broader ranges of transport. However, there's also a discussion within this motion about road capacity. And I think my fear about improving road capacity for especially cars is that the reason there is a limited road capacity in so many places is due to the fact we're not catering enough to public transport and active travel. So my first question, if a member, perhaps a proposer or a seconder, could give me an answer to this, is why road capacity is being focused on so much here, and could these improvements to public transport and active travel actually mean such improvements aren't necessary? My other question is about the welcoming of the bus gate being removed from the proposal. Now, I've seen in Cambridge on Mill Road bus gates do fantastic things. Mill Road is a much better place for the bus gate on Mill Road. That does not mean every bus gate is fantastic. I think there could be problems with a specific bus gate. So I was wondering if more information could be given about why we are welcoming the removal of this bus gate from the proposal.
Thank you. Councillor Martin.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much, Councillor Boulat and Councillor Keane, for bringing this motion forward. This is a project that is incredibly important to not only Huntingdonshire, but also just over the border into South Cambridgeshire as well. And that's mentioned in the report in regards to the Erith Causeway, which we discussed at the budget meeting in February. Just to touch on some of the points raised so far, and thank you for the questions, Councillor Tong, I'll hopefully try and answer them as best as I can. Councillor Dewey Beckett, you mentioned that the motion is very broad. Well, the scheme itself is very broad. If you have a look at the report that's been brought forward by Dr. Nick Johnson, which the last option was from, it is very broad. It includes our roads, it includes public transport, it includes park and rides, it includes active travel. So of course this motion is going to be broad and wide-ranging because the scheme that is in front of us is broad and wide-ranging. So we can't just pick out one part of it because this is a package. It isn't a one and done. It is the whole thing collectively. Whether you agree with it or not, I don't agree lumping everything together is the right option. Councillor Tong, you ask why is it just road capacity? But as I've just said, this isn't just about road capacity. It is talking about active travel. It is also talking about the bus network. But you have to realise in Huntingdonshire, in particular rural Huntingdonshire, west of the A1, we don't have bus services. There are 24 villages within Huntingdonshire that do not have a bus service at all. No bus service. You are reliant on a car. So it is necessary to have improved capacity of our roads to do that. And particularly when we're looking at projects such as Project Fairfax at RAF Whitton, this increased capacity is needed for national security as well as it is for our residents. And you mentioned about the bus gate. Unfortunately, where it was placed and the location of it was just highly inappropriate. I would urge him to have a look at it, and I'm more than happy to sit down and talk to him about it. It was in the wrong place, at the wrong time, and it just was completely unviable and would snarl up St Ives even more. So I hope everyone can support this motion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Do we have other speakers? Councillor Nessinger.
Thank you. I just want to make a couple of points to emphasise why the Liberal Democrat group are not supporting this motion. I think some of them have been made already, so apologies if I'm repeating things. But I want to underline that it's really important that we have a correct process, that these things go through in the Highways and Transport Committee. There is already a paper coming to the Highways Transport Committee on this particular issue in October. What I really don't want to happen is for there to be queue jumping by particular schemes that people bring that happen to be in their division, that they then think can bump that up the queue and remove the opportunity for other places to get the road schemes, which might be just as important. I think there are many, many of us in this room who have road schemes that we would think were important in our patch. If everybody brought their schemes here and we all had to vote on them individually, it becomes ridiculous. That's why we have a Highways and Transport Committee, so that prioritisation can be done in a strategic and careful way. I also just want to flag the irony that I feel about this being brought by the only Labour councillor in Huntingdon, when the Labour government are actually reducing the amount of money that we're being given for some of our major highway schemes. And also included in there is criticism of the Huntingdon District Council local plan, which was brought forward by a joint administration, including Labour councillors, but not including this one. So I would ask everyone in the room to vote this down. It's not that the work won't be done. The work will be done. It will just be done in the right way, in the right place. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have any other speakers, please, on this motion? If not, I will ask Councillor Boulat to sum up, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just trying to think what to focus on, whether it's more political or more pragmatic. I'll start with pragmatic. Thank you to Councillor Keane for seconding and highlighting the questions, and especially highlighting those questions around good governance. And thank you, Councillor Kerr. As she mentioned, we worked very closely together with Councillor Keane and Councillor Kerr throughout the consultation, highlighting some of the real issues mentioned in this motion that our residents, not only in St Ives but surrounding villages as well, have highlighted to us. So thank you to both of you. For Councillor Beckett, I'm happy to bring motions on every single individual issue. It might not be a good use of time of unlimited motions, but as Councillor Martin rightly highlighted, we have a lot of issues in this because the scheme is so broad ranging. So I want to repeat the points made by Councillor Martin because he was absolutely right on this, and I don't think we should bring individual motions breaking down the A141 and improvement scheme into separate themes. Councillor Tong, I'm again happy to discuss with you more about the bus gates. Unlike Mill Road, the bus gate proposed here was not on a road with many restaurants and pedestrian areas and cycling and so on. So I think it's a very different context. And as you said, some bus gate proposals are positive and some are not so much. Yes, and I will end on the points around the kind of like slight political digs. I am, as any member of any political group, allowed to represent my residents' views. Sometimes you might take a critical view. I have been critical on a number of issues, not only on what the government is doing, but locally as well. It's perfectly fine to represent your residents' views. At the end of the day, you are elected by your local residents, in my case, in St. Ives South and Illingworth, to represent their views. And I think it's perfectly fine for me to make those comments. It's not about jumping the queue or something in my patch. As we heard, there are other councillors who are supporting this as well. It's an issue for wider growth in Huntingdonshire, impacting including her Lib Dem members in Huntingdonshire as well. And I just think it's a sensible motion. And I don't think we need those political digs on this, but I'll leave it at this. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Councillor Beckett,
It's just a point of.
are you raising a point of order?
It's a point of personal explanation. Yeah. I think we all understand why this motion has been brought together in one collective. But my point is that the processes outside of this motion are very much separate, and that is how they should be heard. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. It's clear that there isn't consensus on the motion. Therefore, I'd like to ask Democratic Services to initiate the vote, please.
Members in favour of the motion, please press the button underneath the word yes. Members against the motion, please press the button underneath the word no. Members wishing to abstain, please press the button underneath the word abstain. Chair, I'm now closing the vote. Chair, the result of the votes is 17 votes in favour, 30 against and 4 abstentions. The motion is therefore lost.
Thank you. Thank you, members. That concludes the 6 motions that we had today, and therefore move on to item 12, which is questions. Cambridge and Peterborough Combined Authority and the overview and scrutiny oral questions. This will be dealt with in accordance with the protocol set out in Annex 1, Part 4.1 of the Council Rules and Procedures. So can I remind councillors that you may ask questions for response by the Council's appointee on the Combined Authority and its appointees to the Combined Authority of Overview and Scrutiny Committee, which relate to the decisions of the Board and the Overview and Scrutiny Committee as set out in the generic report provided. So a generic report summarising the decisions made by the formal committees is included on the agenda on page 107. Can you please raise your hand if you want to ask a question of Councillor Nessinger, the appointee to the Combined Authority Board? No? In that case, oh, sorry, who did I miss? Sorry, go ahead, Councillor Clark.
Chair, I was wondering if Councillor Nessinger could just ask if the board has discussed the delays to the electric charging channels for electric cars for properties that can't install them out the front, whether the board has discussed the reasons for the delays and what we can expect from here.
Thank you for the question. To be absolutely honest, I can't remember whether we've discussed it at board, but I have discussed it with the mayor and the mayor's advisor. I am deeply unhappy about the position that they are taking on it. I think it's really silly
what they're doing, and they need to get on with it, frankly. I mean, there are many people around Cambridgeshire who are moving to electric vehicles, and I am pleased that they are, because it is clearly the direction that our transport system needs to move in, particularly given the extreme volatility in fossil fuel markets at the moment, which is not getting any better right now. So trying to make it easier for as many people as possible to be able to charge their cars at home, where it is significantly cheaper for them to do so, it's just a really obvious thing to be doing, and I don't understand why the mayor is delaying it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Clark, do you have a supplementary? Hathorn, do you wish to ask a question of Councillor Nessinger?
Yes. Can I ask, as part of the strategy for NEETs, whether the combined authority can work with the county council to clarify the education options for post-16 for students post-16 across Cambridgeshire, so that there is a single source of information for parents and children looking to make decisions?
Yes, I think we can. There's a lot of work that is happening this year around trying to improve the careers advice and the advice that's available to young people as they're making decisions as they go through their career. A lot of that is starting I mean, there is nothing at the moment. We heard earlier in the debate on Elliot's motion about how confusing and unhelpful the environment is for people who are looking for work. It's also confusing and unhelpful for people who are making decisions about where they're going to go at age 16. For lots of kids, it's obvious that they're going to do A levels. But if you're not one of those children, and there are a lot of children for whom that is not the right answer, it's extremely confusing, and schools are not good at supporting them, and other organisations have also not been good at supporting them in the past. So yes, we will work across the piece. There is more money coming in. I'm going to give credit to the Labour government on this one. They have actually provided quite a lot more money for careers funding and for support for helping people in those pathways, but it's taking time to get it down to schools level and for parents to understand. And actually, this council can definitely do more on that too. Thank you.
And I want to check that was a question contained in the board report, right?
There were skills committee papers in the board report.
Fine. Councillor Bulat.
Thank you, Chair. I think it relates mainly to the Transport Committee papers. In recent weeks, I had some meetings with various, bus user groups, as well as with one of the bus operators. And I have to say there are a lot of concerns regarding the independent review into bus franchising. It was published and discussed at the committee, especially the assumptions, as reported in the media, that the network size will have to be quite significantly reduced to deliver on the case. Now, this is, of course, a direct consequence of Mayor Bristow's political decisions to rule out possible funding streams, such as even inflationary increase into the preset, and pursuing other populist policies such as free parking at specific times. So the question is, what consideration has the CPCA given to the impact of this on the wider infrastructure projects, and what is the leader's view as representative on the CPCA board in terms of how can we make sure that our views, especially supporting bus franchising and supporting an improvement in the network, are well represented in those conversations? Thank you.
That was a long question. Councillor Nessinger.
I'm going to go to you, Chair, to find out whether you're happy for me to answer this or whether it needs to go to our overview and scrutiny members. And I'm very happy to give my answer. But actually, the Combined Authority Board have not discussed the franchising papers yet, but the Overview and Scrutiny Committee have discussed them. We are about to discuss them tomorrow, so I clearly have opinions on them. But whether you want me to talk about them or whether you want to suggest that question is put to one of the Overview and Scrutiny members, I will leave up to you, Chair.
Yeah, given that it's coming up the board tomorrow, Councillor Bulat, if it's okay, I will direct your question to the representative from Overview and Scrutiny.
Yes, that's fine.
Which I think is Councillor Bradnam and Councillor Whelan. Councillor Whelan, would you be happy to take that?
Defer to Councillor Whelan.
Could you clarify exactly what I couldn't actually hear over here, exactly what your question was?
Councillor Bulat, would you repeat
Yes, of course. So the question was around the concerns into, of course, the independent review into bus franchising. It was widely reported in the media that currently the mayor's case for bus franchising will imply reducing the network. And I think when all of us supported franchising, we assumed it would be improved. So the question was, what are your views in terms of how the CPCA is ensuring that our views as county representatives are taken into account in this matter? Thank you.
Thank you. The audio is really bad over this side, I have to say. Reality is that the original scheme relied upon the bus precept the mayoral precept increasing as operating costs and subsidy requirements increased. The revised model has a growing funding gap because the mayor has committed to not increasing that precept at all. That's why the scheme is now being phased, with direct awards initially and full competitive franchising extending to around 2030. Serious concern is that franchising could provide greater public control without providing the service growth that residents were expecting. And in actual fact, the reports that were discussed and presented to us are showing that bus mileage might need to reduce by around 10% by 2029 and 19% by 2035. If there isn't an increase in funding, these reductions would be most likely to affect most of the supported and rural services as opposed to city services. So it really is going to affect the places where we need to get these services to. We also need to consider exactly how this is going to be done, because there is, all the way through this, you've got the risk. Do we invest in the capital parts of this? Is it just the revenue parts of this? It really is a challenge. But we also have to remember it's not just about franchising. Without that additional funding, even if franchising wasn't going to happen, there would need to be a reduction in the amount that was being provided for support to our existing services. All in all, it really isn't quite where we would expect franchising to be. And, unfortunately, I do not see with how things are that we are going to see the improvement in services that we were hoping for.
Thank you. Councillor Bulat, do you have a supplementary?
No, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any other questions to overview and scrutiny members? Councillor Clark.
Off of a similar vein, talked about the mileage cuts there, but bus routes themselves are being cut over 40%, by almost 40%. I'm sorry. What's the board? Is the board's view? Sorry, the scrutiny committee's view similar to the mileage cuts here? And does the mayor really risk becoming the beaching of buses for Cambridgeshire by doing so?
Councillor Whelan.
Thank you for that. I think that inevitably, if the funding is not there, I mean, we have to take into account that there are changes in bus usage in any case. But what we are seeing across Cambridgeshire is that as buses have been added, so usage has actually increased quite significantly. So it is obviously very concerning to be talking about cutting routes in their entirety. What we need to be doing is talking about how we will, how this funding gap is actually going to be dealt with, because we need to get buses into the places, and many of the places, the rural places, are precisely the places that we need to give people additional opportunity.
Thank you. Councillor Clark, do you have a supplementary? Are there any other questions to Councillor Nessinger from the board, or questions to the overview and scrutiny members? No, thank you. Thank you, members. We therefore move on to item 13, which is written questions. Response to the 12 written questions received. Thank you, Councillor Tong. Been very busy. Which has been circulated electronically to members and published on the council's website. Thank you very much. That concludes the business on the agenda for today. Thank you very much, everybody.